May 1945. The town of Waldkirch, southern Germany. Everything around looked like the end of the world. The sky was gray, as if it had itself had enough of seeing what was left of the Reich. Destroyed trucks, overturned tanks, traces of war that had become part of the landscape lay by the roadside. Dust and ash covered everything, and the smell of burnt metal hung heavily in the air. Anna stood by an old train, together with dozens of other women in Wehrmacht uniforms. Some still showed traces of discipline in their faces, others only exhaustion. Their fingers trembled, but not from cold. She knew it was all over. Germany had fallen. Uncertainty awaited them. An Allied officer shouted a short command, "Get into the cars." The women looked at each other. No one asked where they were being taken. Some whispered it was a camp in France, others that they would be sent to Siberia. Anna believed neither. She simply sat down, pressed her worn cloth to her chest, and closed her eyes. The train started moving, slowly, with a metallic squeal, as if it were pulling all the past with it. Outside, the landscapes changed, yet everything seemed alien, empty, like a world no one claimed anymore. Fields burned and abandoned, small villages with bombed-out houses, smoke still rising from ruins. The women sat closely together, their gazes fixed straight ahead. Silence prevailed, broken only by the rattling of the wheels on the tracks. Some had tears in their eyes, others just stared into the distance, trying to block out reality. Anna felt the fear emanating from everyone, but also a quiet relief. The war was over, the unknown awaited, yet the death that pursued them was no longer immediate. Each kilometer was a reminder of the horrors they were leaving behind. The uniform suddenly felt like chains, a symbol of a lost world that now lived only in the eyes of survivors. Outside, spring seemed to be waiting, but inside there was only dust, sweat, and a quiet trembling at the unknown. Anna closed her eyes tighter and tried to organize her thoughts. Memories of the last months overwhelmed her. Fear, hunger, constant marching, the officers shouting, the smell of blood and smoke. And yet, beneath all these memories, a spark of hope stirred. Perhaps this was a new beginning, even if she did not know what it would look like. As the train continued to roll, Anna felt something release inside her, a tiny moment of calm, a breath without fear. She pressed the cloth even tighter to her chest, as if it protected her not just from the cold, but from the world itself. And as the tracks hummed beneath them, she thought, maybe something ends here, but somewhere far away, something new could begin. The days stretched endlessly, like a single gray morning light. Foreign lands passed by the windows, signs in an incomprehensible language, and every station brought new uncertainty. The women sat quietly. Some whispered soft prayers, others simply stared into the distance. Finally, the train stopped. The car doors were open with metallic clatter, and a dazzling, almost overwhelming light hit their eyes. The women blinked, shielding their faces with their hands. After the gray sky of Germany, this sun seemed almost offensively bright, yet it brought a sense of relief. Not Siberia, no dark dungeons, no executions. Anna was the last to get off. Under her feet, the dry earth crunched, and the smell of dust and horses filled the air. American soldiers stood in a line. Some wore helmets, others cowboy hats. A tall soldier with a sun-bleached uniform and a slight grin tipped his head and said, "Welcome to Texas, ladies." The women did not respond. They didn't understand English. But the tone, it was not the tone of an execution. It was something else. Anna and the others were led to trucks. The ride to the camp took almost an hour. Fields passed like an endless sea, dotted with lonely ranches whose boys waved at the women, as if greeting old acquaintances. Everything was confusing. They had been taught that America was a country of cynics, traitors, people without honor. Yet in every glance here, there was something alive, simple, almost childlike. The camp itself was not what they had expected. Small wooden barracks, surrounded by barbed wire, yet the gate stood open, not because anyone could escape, but because no one intended to leave. On the drill ground stood a water tower, next to a horse corral. The women looked at each other. Captivity? Or simply work? The Americans explained with gestures. Bath, food, rest. They received clean clothes, freshly washed cotton shirts and skirts. It felt strange, the enemy giving them things, caring for them as if they were human. In the canteen, the smell of coffee, real, bitter, strong coffee. Anna held the cup with both hands for the first time in a long while, sensing that the world could smell not only of fear, but also of something real. In the evening, the sun leaned toward the horizon. The camp bathed in soft, golden light. Behind the barracks, a quiet humming of male voices, and a guitar could be heard. One of the cowboys sang slowly, drawn out. She didn't understand the words, yet the song held everything: longing, fatigue, life. Anna sat by the window, pressing her old German cloth to her chest, as if afraid to forget who she was. That night, she prayed for the first time in months, not for death. She simply looked at the camp lights and thought, maybe the enemy is not a person. Maybe the enemy is what made us fight. The next morning, the sun rose early, as if reminding them that life here followed its own rules. The women awoke to the smell of fried eggs and coffee, a luxury hardly imaginable in German barracks. Anna stepped outside. The air was hot but fresh. In the distance, a cowboy rode a horse, herding cattle across the grounds. He raised his hand in greeting, and Anna responded automatically, cautiously, almost shyly. The Americans treated them strangely, without mockery, without humiliation, but also without particular trust. They were given work, helping the kitchen, washing, tending to the animals. Many women were shocked. A camp where no one screamed, where one could sleep peacefully, where no one struck. For those who had seen the Eastern Front, it felt like an illusion. Anna washed metal bowls under a shelter when the tall soldier who had greeted them at the train station approached. He tipped his hat, smiling. "Name's Jack," he said, pointing to himself. "Jack Miller." Anna nodded. Anna, no more words were needed. He helped carry a bucket, showed her how to thank in the American way, then left, leaving the smell of tobacco and dust behind. That day, the women laughed for the first time. Nervously, awkwardly, but they laughed. One of them, Latte, said, "If Hitler had known captivity could be like this, he would have fled here himself." Everyone laughed louder, as conscience allowed. At night, calm fell over the camp. Only cicadas sang somewhere beyond the fence. Anna sat by the window, thinking of Jack, his calmness, the simple gaze without malice. She remembered the German officers, their cold eyes, and compared, not to their advantage. What if all this time we weren't fighting the enemy, but our own shadows, she thought. On the neighboring bed, someone whispered in German, "Do you think they'll let us go?" Anna didn't answer. She just looked at the sky over Texas, where stars shone, bright, infinite, completely different from German stars. In that moment, she didn't feel like a prisoner, but like someone who had lived for the first time in a long while. May 1945, Texas, Amarillo Camp. Only a few days had passed, yet it seemed as if an entire different world lay between the war and this place. Anna no longer flinched at men's voices or footsteps outside. She knew the daily routine. Get up at 6, breakfast, work, lunch, short rest. Everything calm, orderly, as if the war had happened on another planet. Every morning, the sun rose quickly, without hesitation. It climbed above the horizon, and the earth began to glow from the heat. The women carried water, washed laundry, repaired clothing. The Americans did not interfere, only made sure everything went according to plan. But in their eyes, there was not the cold superiority Anna had known from the German officers. Jack sometimes came to the well where Anna washed the laundry. He always greeted first. "Good morning, Anna." She had learned the expression by now and answered awkwardly, "Good morning, Jack." He laughed softly, as if she had accomplished something important. In that laugh, there was something the whole world lacked: humanity. In the evening, after dinner, the Americans gathered around a campfire outside the camp. The women could watch from afar, through the barracks windows. Music sounded, guitar, harmonica, quiet conversations. The war seemed no longer to exist here. Anna listened, and within her grew a strange feeling, nostalgia for something she had never known. One evening, Jack came close to the fence and handed her a can, metal cold. "Try it," he said. Anna opened it. Inside was a sweet, fizzy drink. She took a sip and made a face. Jack laughed. "Coca-Cola," he said, as if it were the name of a holy relic. Anna didn't understand the meaning, but she remembered the taste, strange yet alive, like America itself. A few days later, the women were invited to help on the ranch, distributing feed, repairing fences. The camp began to lose its function as a prison. It became a kind of transitional world between past and future. Anna watched as children from the area brought food to the soldiers, as women from neighboring towns brought flowers, simply to support those who had returned from the war. No one spat at them, no one shouted fascists. Here, everyone seemed to just want to continue to live. At night, a dry wind swept over the camp. Dust settled over the ground, scratching at the windows. Anna couldn't sleep. She slipped outside, quietly barefoot, so as not to wake the others. The moon hung in the sky, round and enormous, and the fence cast shadows on the ground. Someone outside played a harmonica, the same melody as on the day of their arrival. She closed her eyes. The music felt like a prayer, not for victory, not for a nation, but simply that all of this would never happen again. In that moment, she realized that for the first time in years, she felt gratitude towards people she had recently called enemies. The morning began quietly. Even the cicadas seemed exhausted by the heat. Anna sat at a long wooden table in the barracks and wrote. The paper had been provided by the Americans, clean, thick, with the smell of fresh cellulose. The pencil was short, but sharp. She wrote a letter, not knowing if it would ever reach its destination. "Mom, if you are still alive, know that I am alive too. I am in America. Yes, in America. In captivity, but it's not what I imagined. It is warm here. The people are not evil. I work. I eat every day. Sometimes I even laugh. I don't know if one can say that, but perhaps I've been lucky." Her hand trembled. She wanted to write more. "I have met someone, a soldier. He is not like our men. He doesn't shout, he doesn't command, he just looks straight at you, as if he sees not the uniform but the soul." But these words stayed in her mind. She didn't dare put them on paper. She folded the letter, even though she didn't know the address, and placed it in her skirt pocket like a talisman. Meanwhile, life in the camp followed its own course. The women slowly adapted to the American daily routine. Some learned a few English words. Others even began sewing new clothes from fabrics provided by local volunteers. Sometimes journalists came, filming scenes of the humane treatment of prisoners. Anna saw the soldiers line them up, smiling for the camera. She sensed the artificiality, yet also understood. Let them play, if it makes the world seem kinder. One evening, Jack brought her an old book in German. It was a volume of Goethe, Faust, published in Berlin before the war. "Found it in a burned library near Aachen," he said. Anna carefully ran her finger over the cover. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack didn't understand, but he smiled. He always smiled. Simple, human. After that evening, they met more often. Not secretly, they simply talked. Jack spoke about his ranch, the horses, his sister waiting for him in Dallas. Anna listened and noticed that there was no hatred in his stories. Not a word about enemies. Only life, simple, warm, grounded. But at night, when the camp was already asleep, Anna would step outside the fence and gaze into the darkness. In the distance, scattered city lights twinkled, hesitant, flickering, and suddenly fear overtook her, not for herself, but for what was to come. When the war was finally over, who would she be then? A prisoner? A German? Or simply a woman who once tasted a Coca-Cola from an enemy's hand and felt that life could still be good? She took the letter from her pocket, unfolded it. Under the last line, she wrote, "If fate allows, I will return. But perhaps returning means losing oneself again." The letter remained on the windowsill, under the moonlight. No address, no signature, but with hope. The heat was so intense that the air shimmered like transparent fire. The sky was leaden, and clouds gathered on the horizon, a rare sight for this region. The Americans looked up and talked. Storms coming. Anna didn't know the word, but she felt its meaning. Everything began in the evening. First the wind, then the smell of dust and ozone. The camp seemed to stand still. The women closed windows. Wedged cloths against doors keep the sand out. Then the sky opened, thunder, lightning, rain. Real like in Europe. Water ran over the barracks' roofs, sounding like music. Anna stood at the window, watching the drops hit the earth. Jack ran past, shielding his head with his hat, laughing. Like a boy. He noticed her, waved, and shouted something. She didn't understand the words, but his expression said, "Come out!" Anna hesitated, then opened the door. The wind hit her face. The rain immediately soaked her dress. She laughed, without knowing why. Jack stood a few steps away, completely drenched but happy, as if the rain had washed away the horrors of war. "Feels good, right?" he called. Anna nodded. She didn't know what to say. She simply raised her head to the sky and let the water run down her cheeks. They weren't tears. It was cleansing. A lightning flash lit up the camp, making the night white for a moment. Anna saw the faces of the other women. They too were standing in the rain, laughing, raising their hands as if to grasp the sky. The Americans did not interfere. Some even stepped outside, handing out towels and cups of hot coffee. After the storm, the air was different, fresh, warm, smelling of earth. Jack brought Anna a blanket and seated her by the campfire. The fire crackled, and somewhere in the distance, the harmonica played again. Jack looked at her seriously, for the first time without a smile. "You miss home?" Anna nodded. "Yes, home." He lowered his gaze. "War's over," he said quietly. "You can start new." She didn't answer. She just stared into the fire, because in that moment, she realized for the first time, new life sounds more terrifying than captivity. New life meant accepting that the old one was truly over. Yet deep inside, something began to grow. Not faith, not hope, something quieter. Perhaps the beginning of forgiveness. As the wind carried away the remnants of the storm, Anna understood that a conversation was approaching. A real one. Not with Jack, with herself. A week after the storm, the air softened, as if nature had granted exhausted humans a pause. Life in the camp ran quietly. The women no longer felt like prisoners, rather like workers on foreign land. The Americans allowed them to move freely around the grounds, speak with each other, and occasionally listen to music by the campfire. Yet peace rarely lasts forever. That day, a military vehicle entered the camp. An officer of the U.S. Army stepped out, his expression cool. He spoke at length with the camp commander. The women only saw his shoulders tense, and the commander gnawed before ordering everyone to assemble. The officer read names aloud. Anna heard familiar ones. Her friends Latte, Greta, Elsa. "You will be transferred to another camp," he said sternly. To another camp, without explanations. After the assembly, Jack came to her. "They're sending some of you north," he said. "Oklahoma, maybe." Anna felt her world collapse inwardly. "Me?" He remained silent. "I don't know yet." That night, she did not sleep. The women whispered, speculated what it could mean. Some suspected they would be returned to Europe. Others feared interrogations. Anna just sat by the window, holding the single piece of paper, the letter without an address. Shortly before dawn, there was a soft knock at the door. "Jack, come with me," he said. They walked to the far end of the camp, where the wire fence had already begun to rust from the rain. Beyond the fence stretched a golden, endless field. "When this war started," said Jack, looking into the distance, "I was a farm boy. Didn't even know where Germany was. They told us you were monsters." He turned to her. "But you're just people." Anna didn't know what to answer. She looked at his face, tired, honest, simple. Then she sighed. "They told us the same." A heavy but pure pause fell between them. No guilt, no excuses. Jack pulled something from his pocket, a small metal star, the insignia from his uniform. "Keep it," he said. "For luck." Anna took the star. It was cool in her hand, yet inside she felt warmth. "Thank you," she whispered. On the way back, Anna thought. She did not fear the transfer. She did not fear America. She feared only one thing, that all of this would be forgotten, and that, back in destroyed Germany, she would once again become what the war had made her. That night, the wind stirred dust again. Anna lay on her bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking. If memory is a prison, perhaps forgiveness is the only way out. June 1945. Texas, Amarillo Camp. Anna awoke to the sounds outside. Rain had fallen the previous week. The earth had dried, and the air smelled of summer. Today was the day they were allowed to leave the campgrounds for the first time. "Step outside, slowly," said Jack as he opened the door. Anna walked along the path, leading to a wide field behind the camp. The grass was tall, prickly, yet soft under her feet. In the distance, cows grazed, and a man on horseback kept watch. The Cowboys soldiers worked without paying attention to the women. For the first time, Anna felt true freedom. No orders, no fear. Only wind, sun, and the scent of fresh grass. Jack came closer and pointed at a horse, large brown, with a white mane. "You ride?" Anna had never been on a horse. Her heart raced, but she nodded. He helped her mount. "Hold on tight," he warned, and the horse moved gently forward. The wind struck her face, but instead of fear, she felt joy. She laughed uncontrollably, and Jack laughed with her. Everything seemed surreal. Germany destroyed, the war over, and she was riding a horse in Texas. After the ride, they sat at a table outdoors, where lunch was served. The other women shared stories of family, loss, dreams. Anna listened as new thoughts swirled through her mind. About the future, about who she would be when she returned home. In the evening, as the sun approached the horizon, Jack came to barracks fence again. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," he said softly. Anna nodded, looking at him. She understood that freedom was not just physical. It was internal, and for the first time in years, she felt it fully. Night fell quickly. The women sat by the campfire, drinking hot chocolate, listening to the guitar. The music sounded different, warm, drawn out like life itself. Anna pressed her small metal star to her chest and smiled. She knew the coming days would be hard. Memories, home, family, new rules. But at that moment, everything seemed possible. Almost 2 months had passed since the women had arrived at the camp. They had gradually adapted to the new daily routine. Work in the kitchen, help on the ranch, English lessons, morning walks across the fields. Yet every evening as the sun set, thoughts returned. The war had left indelible scars on their souls. Anna sat by the window of the barracks, holding her small metal star, Jack's gift, in her hands. Suddenly, loud laughter rang out from the field. On the open ground, American soldiers were playing baseball. Their movements were light, free, full of energy that the women hadn't seen in a long time. Jack spotted Anna and waved to her. "Come on, Anna. Try it." At first, she hesitated. Memories of trembling hands, weapons, orders were still present, but the laughter, the sun, and the wind slowly melted away her fear. She stepped onto the field. The ball flew high, and Anna stretched her hand uncertainly, catching it. "Good catch," Jack called, smiling. A laugh escaped her, unexpected, loud, honest. The women watching from the sidelines slowly approached, becoming part of the game. Latte, Anna's friend, stepped closer cautiously, observing the Americans and their former comrades. "I never thought we'd play with them." Anna nodded, smiling to herself. "Me neither, but it feels normal." This feeling of normality, strange, almost forbidden, gradually seized everyone. Former enemies, who once stood against each other with weapons, now laughed together, helped one another, exchanged gestures and glances. Not because they had forgotten the war, but because they found something more important. Humanity, which fear, propaganda, and horror could not break. After the game, they sat under a shady tree, tired but happy. Jack brought cold lemonade. Someone played a familiar melody quietly on the guitar. Anna observed the faces of the women, exhausted yet radiant. For the first time in months, she felt part of something that required no justification. "Maybe this is what freedom really is," she whispered to herself, as the warmth of the sun mingled with joy and relief. As evening slowly fell over the camp, Anna paused, gazing at the horizon. There, where the sun touched the ground, the silhouettes of the cowboys on their horses seemed almost mystical. And in that moment, she understood. The world is strange and unpredictable, yet sometimes it gives more than one deserves. That day became a turning point. The women realized that their captivity was not the end of their story, but the beginning of something new. They did not yet know that hard times and farewells awaited them, but for the first time in a long while, they felt a strength that could change everything, trust and friendship, even among former enemies. The summer was hot, the air shimmering above the dry grass, smelling of dust and freshly cut hay. The day of departure to other camps or return to Europe approached. Anna stood by the fence, holding Jack's small metal star. Her heart beat quickly, with excitement and the anticipation of farewell. Jack stepped up to her, his eyes serious but gentle. "You ready?" he asked softly. She nodded, unable to speak immediately. Thank you." He just smiled and placed his hand on her shoulder. "Take care, Anna. Wherever you go, remember this place." Anna walked around the camp one last time, saying goodbye to every familiar face. Lotte, Greta, Elsa all laughed and cried at the same time, knowing that life would soon separate them. The women hugged the American soldiers, some whispering thank you or goodbye, others simply keeping their eyes open to remember this world forever. Anna stepped onto the field where they had played baseball for the first time. The sun leaned toward the horizon, bathing everything in golden light. She closed her eyes, inhaling the air full of grass, dust, and freedom. In her heart, a strange feeling, a mixture of gratitude, sadness, and hope. Jack offered his hand, and together they approached the truck that would take the women to the new camp. She looked once more to the horizon, where endless fields lay, cowboys herding cattle, and the music of past days sounding under the stars. "Goodbye, Texas," she whispered. Yet inside her soul, the most important thing remained. The memory that even after war, fear, and pain, there exists a place where people can simply be human. The train began to move, as it once did in Waldkirch. But Anna's heart was different now. Not as a prisoner, not as a German, not as a victim of circumstances, but as a woman who had survived the war, found humanity where she least expected it, and realized that life always offers a new beginning. On the horizon, the camp lights disappeared, but the memory of Jack, of laughter, rain, and the endless field of Texas, remained with Anna forever, as a symbol that hope, trust, and humanity are stronger than fear and war. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe to the channel, give a like, and hit the bell to never miss a new video. Leave a comment telling us which story you'd like to see next.